Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan, you give two reasons for what you have just said now. You say, in contrast, General Mkhwanazi claims in his affidavit to the State Capture Commission that he was completely unaware of the contents of General Pierre's affidavit because he was in his period of rest at home in KwaZulu-Natal at the time. I find this claim unconvincing because, and then comes the two reasons,
Yes.
or then come, not comes, the two reasons that you give.
Yes.
Even if I take a bit of time, I will read both. The first one is this. General Mkhwanazi was aware of the allegations in the FUL application because the founding affidavit in the urgent application had been served on subs whilst he was acting National Commissioner, and he had deposed to the initial answer in that application, but chose to sidestep the unlawful instruction allegation and simply not comment. General Mkhwanazi, therefore, knew that the allegation of an unlawful instruction to him was at the center of the application, and the reply from General Pierre would have to admit to that central allegation if she was not going to perjure herself. Let's focus on that reason and not overlap onto the second reason. Yes.
Of course, you can read different things into it,
Yeah.
the way I phrased it.
On what basis would you want to suggest that General Mkhwanazi would have known what General Pierre would say or not say in her answering affidavit on the Part B of the application, going so far as to talk about perjury and so on?
My argument, Commissioner, is very simple. I go to Minister Nshleko's presentation in 2015 to the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police, where he talks about the grievance. And he didn't make the grievance in 2015, he made it earlier than that. So here he was making a grievance about the alleged perjury of General Pierre. But what he wasn't doing was saying it's perjury because this is what really happened. He just said she perjured herself.
But here you are talking about what General Mkhwanazi ought to have known what General Pierre would say, not what she had in fact said, what she would say in deposing to the Part B answering affidavit.
He would have post-factum. He only knew about it after.
So those are two different things. What may have happened a couple of years later does not answer what General Mkhwanazi should have known with regard to what General Pierre would say in her Part B answering affidavit. That's where I am.
So, yes, Commissioner, but the point I'm making is he knew what the central allegation of the Freedom Under Law application was. He knew. The whole application was bound on this allegation that he had received unlawful instructions.
But what's going to be deposed to is not his affidavit. And if nobody invites him to come depose to the affidavit as the person who actually knew what had happened, then on what basis can you fault him with regard to what the content of General Pierre's affidavit was going to be?
Let me give you an analogy, Commissioner.
Yes.
If you look at Section 34 of PREC, the Prevention and Combating of Corrupt Activities Act, it makes it an offence for a person not to report a particular category of crime. We're talking here about the previous acting commissioner of police, who is now sitting at home twiddling his thumbs, watching all the media coverage. I cannot believe he wasn't able to see what was going on in the media. And instead of stepping up and saying, well, hang on a minute, this is not true, he kept quiet. And the point I'm making is he had ample opportunity to not keep quiet, and he didn't do so. And he was a policeman.
I know right at the beginning of this engagement, I said that we should not conflate the two reasons that you give, and I'm going to preach exactly what I had said to you. You see, the difficulty I have with what you have just said about not believing that he would not have become aware of what the media was saying. In your second reason, you actually accept the possibility that he might not have become aware of what was out there in the media. You go so far as to say that, but if he had himself not become aware, people close to him would surely have told him. So in answering my question with regard to the first reason, I do not think you can peg your answer on him having heard or seen or read what was out there in the media.
Well, of course.
Because then you are contradicting yourself.
No, of course. If the Commission gives him the benefit of the doubt.
You first gave him the benefit of the doubt.
I don't necessarily, I'm saying I wasn't convinced by his argument.
Yes.
Okay? And the reason I wasn't convinced of his 2020 affidavit was because in 2015, he was moaning and grievance about Commissioner Pieka lying under oath against him, about him, that he didn't say this, and therefore, he was never offered a confirmatory statement. At the end of the day, Commissioner, what it boils down to, from me as an evidence giver, is it's I suppose, 80% gut feeling. But if you look at the reality of it, there's no evidence between 2012, when he had an opportunity to come clean, when he made the first answering affidavit to the Part A, he had an opportunity to come clean and tell the truth. He kept quiet. And the first time we hear about it was at the State Capture Commission, and that comes out in his affidavit. And it really then is utilized at this commission. But what he doesn't do at this commission is said, by the way, I kept quiet about it for 8 years. I told the State Capture Commission, I just think it should have been a lot more transparent. If we are talking about a junior policeman, I can understand, but we are talking about a person who was the acting commissioner of police. He was in charge of running the police service, and he was the man, nobody else, him. He was the one that unlawfully put Richard Mkhwanazi back to work, forcing civil society to bring urgent applications to get Richard Mkhwanazi back out from his office. And I'm going to paint in my closing argument, or whatever you want to call it, the reality between that and what went on at the 6th of July media conference, because there are similarities here.
Yeah, those are related issues I will immediately accept, but you are dealing with something specific here, which is about why, and you keep repeating the words, he was sitting at home twiddling his fingers. I will not go so far as to say he was twiddling his fingers, but you repeatedly refer to the fact that he was sitting at home. And your point is more that he had all the time to basically anticipate whatever it is General Pieka would say about this, lest she perjure herself. That's the substance of the question. I accept the other issues that you've just referred to in response to my question are related, but they are not really what you are addressing in 1.7.6.2. So that is, my point is, this is somebody who is sitting at home under the circumstances that we all know, based on the testimony or the material before us. Now, on what basis must he insert himself and say, I'm lifting my hand, here I am, just in case the current incumbent, General Pieka, might perjure herself, I'm offering myself. Why should he have done that? Shouldn't those who were preparing the answer, the Part B answering affidavit, have been the ones who approach him specifically and say, you are the person best placed to answer this, therefore, please tell us what you know so that we file your affidavit as a confirmatory affidavit to what General Pieka is going to be saying?
Well, it's a tricky one, Commissioner. The reality of the situation is that during that period of time, President Zuma was running the country, or running the government, and we had all these things going on. And I cannot say beyond reasonable doubt that he colluded. But what I can say is he would have known that in order for her answering affidavit to be truthful, she would have had to say that which he refused to say, which is that he got an instruction, according to his version of events later, from the commissioner, from the Minister of Police to reappoint General Mkhwanazi. And let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he wasn't listening to what's going on in the media. Let's just say that he was blind to all these things that were going on. But somehow he was able to make a complaint, a grievance. If I was in his shoes, I would have been beating a path to the door to say, hang on a minute, let's tell the truth here. But he couldn't. And the reason he couldn't was because it was still too short a period after the event where he had acted unlawfully by carrying out the instructions of the Minister of Police. But 8 years later, you know, time has passed, water has gone under the bridge, now we can put it out there. I believe he should have put it out there a lot sooner.
Let's move on to the second reason, 1.7.6.3. I don't think we have much to say there because I already touched on it when we were dealing with the first one. But the point I will make in this regard is that doesn't your second reason become attenuated in the sense that you yourself already accept the possibility that he might not have seen, that is General Mkhwanazi, he might not have seen what was out there in the media?
Well, that possibility, you can say, exists there. But then I counter it by saying, even if he wasn't aware of the news coverage, it's inconceivable that none of his close colleagues in the police would have drawn General Pieka's denial to his attention. And the reality is, he became aware of it somehow because he laid a grievance.
That's speculation of the highest order. We are talking as at the time. I'm engaging you as at the time. That's speculation of the highest order.
It's hard to say.
Yes.
The time machine, I guess, would be needed.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe for my understanding, can we go to page 384? 384 of the bundle, and that we are still in General Mkhwanazi's affidavit to the Commission, to the State Capture Commission.
384.
384.
Yep.
And he starts at paragraph 67, that on those dates, 17, 18, 19 of April 2012, they appeared before the Portfolio Committee. I'm interested in what's set out in paragraph 69, where he says, having presented, he concluded with the remarks, other powers decided on convictions, not just the SAPs. Here I was referring to where matters were taken out of control of the police. Is it that quotation that you say means where he's supposed to have said to Parliament that he acted at the behest of other powers?
Yeah.
Or is it a completely different engagement on that score?
My understanding, Commissioners, is that there he's talking about the criminal charges, not the disciplinary charges. So the criminal charges were not in his domain. They're in the domain of the NPA. And as we know, that was being mismanaged by advocates Mwebi and Jiba. So I opened, by the way, a criminal complaint against them for the mismanagement of that whole mess. So you have this situation where the National Prosecuting Authority, under advocates, by the way, at that stage, Advocate Jiba was the acting NDPP. And then Advocate Mwebi, Lawrence Mwebi, was the head, the national head of
Yes.
commercial crime at the NPA. And they took an unlawful decision to withdraw the criminal charges, not only the charges pertaining to the kidnap and murder of his wife's ex-boyfriend or whatever the case may be, but also the alleged fraud and corruption charges. They took those decisions unlawfully. And I believe that's what he's talking about here.
And that's the clarity I was seeking, whether what he states at paragraph 69. So you are saying when he says he stated to Parliament that other powers decided on convictions, not just the subs.
Yeah.
He was referring to the criminal case. It
The
has got
criminal
nothing
case,
to
but
do.
what he doesn't say, Commissioners, is he doesn't say what he said about the disciplinary charges, because that's what he was questioned on in Parliament. And he said a higher authority, that's his words. And when they tried to drill down into that, he said he couldn't go into it.
I accept. I just needed your clarity on this, that quotation I read there, I should not misunderstand as his response to the issue of withdrawal of the disciplinary charges. I should not misunderstand that quotation to relate to that.
I believe this is not to do with the disciplinary
Okay.
charges. I believe this is to do with the criminal charges. He uses the word other powers decided on convictions, not just the police.
Can I then invite us to page 25, paragraph 1.7.10, 1.7.10?
Uh-huh.
You conclude at this paragraph thus, and I quote, given General Mkhwanazi's own collusion in an illegal process of political interference designed to keep Ndluli in charge of the Division of Crime Intelligence and its regularly stolen secret funds, it is difficult to take seriously his complaints of political interference.
Yep.
Okay, and you go on. Do I understand you correctly that you suggest General Mkhwanazi colluded in retaining General Ndluli in the Division of Crime Intelligence to facilitate the stealing of secret funds? Is that, am I understanding you correctly, or am I misunderstanding you wholly?
Sorry, I'm not quite...
I was saying my interpretation of what you say there, I wanted to test whether I'm correct or whether I'm misunderstanding
So
you.
what I'm saying is there's similarities.
Yes.
The similarities in 2012 are the same as the similarities in 2025 in July. In 2012, it was to protect the head of crime intelligence, which was Lieutenant General Ndluli. In 2025 in July, it's to protect, I'm saying, and that'll be the next bit that I come on to, that it was to protect crime intelligence.
Oh, so
Those are the similarities.
So a protection of General Mkhwanazi, General Ndluli,
Ndluli, I'm
in
saying,
2012 you say was by General Mkhwanazi himself?
yes, I'm saying that in 2011/12, he was protecting one general in crime intelligence. And in 2025, he's protecting 5 generals in crime intelligence.
Okay. Now, you have tendered this affidavit, so I'm sure you are familiar to some extent with it. From paragraph 9 of that affidavit, General Mkhwanazi makes the distinction, or seeks to.
So what page?
Paragraph 9, I'll tell you the exact page now. 349, under the heading the Ndluli matter.
So this is one of the annexes.
Yeah, your annexures, yes. We are still with
Page-
the 349.
Page 349.
349, yes.
Yep, got it.
And at paragraph 8, he makes the point that when he was appointed, General Ndluli was the Divisional Commissioner of Crime Intelligence.
Yep.
At 9, he points out that by then he had, as he joined as acting national commissioner. General Mkhwanazi had already been on suspension, having been suspended on 29th April 2021.
Correct.
And that suspension related to the alleged murder case.
Uh-huh.
And at 3:50, he continues that at paragraph 10, on establishing that Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi had not been suspended on the fraud and corruption charges, which he introduces in the paragraph above, he instructed Lieutenant General Stander, the Deputy National Commissioner of Human Resources, to initiate steps to implement disciplinary charges against Lieutenant Mkhwanazi in this regard. Then at paragraph 11, he speaks about General Nebeam, which we can skip. And then at paragraph 12, he says, as part of my briefing on this matter, I was advised that Major General Solil Lazarus, the Chief Financial Officer of the Secret Service account of CI, had already been suspended and charged criminally for fraud and corruption. He continues at 13, I then decided to instruct Lieutenant General Stander to appoint an outside person to assess the available evidence to determine whether it implicated General Mkhwanazi and then to advise me on the way forward. These events took place roughly towards the end of 2011. I attached marked NM1 a copy of the report obtained by Lieutenant General Stander pursuant to my instructions. He then says at paragraph 15, pursuant to this report, disciplinary charges were brought against Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. This is now for the fraud. Do you accept the facts as set out by General Mkhwanazi in this affidavit, or do you have reason to doubt
In there,
their veracity?
I can't contradict them.
Okay, now in light of that, if you then are forced to accept, is it fair to suggest that he took steps and colluded in a process that will protect General Mkhwanazi and enable the further looting of secret funds? Is that a fair conclusion? If you accept the facts as stated here.
If what he says here is true, then it means he's doing his job. But then along came the minister who said, cut all this up, drop the charges, put him back to work, and he did that. So he may have started off on that course. I guess the best person to ask is him.
Okay.
Can I
Yes,
ask a question, because you introduced the involvement of the minister?
Sorry?
You introduced the involvement of the minister.
Yes.
2 months after the suspension was lifted, so on the same day that FUL launched the urgent application, you are aware that General Mkhwanazi did suspend General Mkhwanazi again.
10 days later, the Freedom Under Law case was launched
Yes.
on the 15th of May.
Yes.
General Mkhwanazi General Mkhwanazi resuspended General Mkhwanazi on the 25th of May.
Yeah, don't confuse the date when he was charged with the date when he was suspended. I had understood, having read the judgment, both the High Court judgment and the
No,
Supreme Court of Appeal judgment.
he was resuspended on the
yeah.
25th of May.
I'm looking at paragraph 95 of the judgment. You may be right, because it says the application was launched on the 15th of May 2013. I think that's a typo in the judgment. It's 2012, right?
So
I'm
just-
on page 409.
409.
Yeah.
Let me just go to it.
409.
Yep.
I think this may be a typo in the judgment. That should be 2012, right?
The wording of the paragraph would suggest so.
Yeah.
Which
So
paragraph, sorry?
Paragraph 95.
95.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
You may be correct. So I think there's a typo there with the date. But your point is that he only resuspended him after the urgent application was launched.
After the freedom under law application was launched, he realized, uh-oh, there's trouble coming.
Yeah.
But contemporaneous with the launching of the freedom under law application, Advocate Chauke was the Director of Public Prosecutions in Johannesburg, and he had given instructions for an inquest into the murder of, or the death of Oupa Ramokgopa. So what happened was, during that inquest, in the week after the freedom under law application was launched, and while General Mkhwanazi was having to deal with his answering affidavit, revelations were coming out at the inquest about the conduct and the kidnapping and the beating up of Oupa Ramokgopa, allegedly by, in fact, he was convicted by it later.
Mr. O'Sullivan, I want to stick to the theme of the question by Advocate Sello. So my question in essence is, what do you make then of the fact that during the May period, he did suspend General Mkhwanazi again, and in fact, he was charged?
Well, he didn't really have much of a choice, because he's got this application landed on his desk on the 15th of May.
Yes.
So 10 days later, while he's doing his affidavit to respond to this application, this urgent application, he resuspends him. And I'm saying, he was in a corner. He had no choice. He had to do it.
All right.
But
Mr. O'Sullivan, I think you are aware in this affidavit here, you've got where he describes.
Where what?
Where he describes the steps that he took, and
Yep.
that includes engagement with the Inspector General, and the Inspector General at some point instructing that he should lift the suspension and have
Yep.
Mr.
Yep.
Mkhwanazi come back to work,
Yep.
and he didn't agree with that. So you are aware of the steps that he took,
Yep.
but for that he acted on ultimately he acts because the minister is now involved in the matter. You surely couldn't fairly say, disregard everything else that he has done and say, because he followed the minister's instruction and put it as high as that was action, he acted to protect Mkhwanazi, who, for purpose of plundering the secret fund. You can't. I mean, there's a logic in it. There's a disconnect in that you seem to, in fact, not you seem to, you do as a matter, as you testify there, you disregard all the efforts that he took to discipline General Mkhwanazi. You disregard that, and then you say, well, he followed the minister's instruction ultimately. The minister instructed him, and by following the minister's instruction, he therefore was in fact protecting Mkhwanazi to enable him to continue to plunder the secret fund. I don't understand that logic or that reasoning, because it seems to be quite selective. From where I'm sitting, you seem to be selective in refusing to acknowledge the steps that he took, but also to acknowledge that, in fact, when he did withdraw the uplift rather, the suspension, it was at the instruction of the minister. You can criticize him for following the minister, just like the court did, right? That he's got the discretion, he's got the power. He should have insisted to exercise his power. Well, he didn't. He followed the minister's instruction. How that translates so easily, in your view, to it being a deliberate decision on his part to protect crime intelligence general for purpose of plundering the secret fund, and then you say in exactly the same way that is done in 2025. I'm battling to see the connect that you seek to make in what seems to be disconnected.
I don't consider that I've disconnected. If I look at it, what happened at the time? He's only given his version of events 8 years later. Nowhere at the time does he explain all these events. He waits 8 years. He could have said in his answering affidavit to the court, he could have outlined these things then. He didn't. He kept quiet about it. He only comes out with it 8 years later. Now, if one has to give some real thought to this and think out of the box, one has to consider the following. He was a junior senior police official. He was a major general in the police, and he was aged 38. There were probably at least 40 generals in the police.
So, Mr. O'Sullivan, we're not discussing that now, sorry.
Okay.
It's late in the day. We're
All
not
right.
discussing what you have addressed in your
Okay.
statement. Our question is really, the theme now is a very, it's a direct theme. It doesn't require you to speak about his
Yeah.
promotion that you obviously were not happy about. It is simply this, that unless you say everything that he says I did, or the steps that he took to discipline, to suspend, unless you say all of that is a lie, right? And I didn't understand you to be saying all of that which he says he did is a lie. Unless you're saying that it's a lie, I don't see how you can fairly say today, knowing what you know. Remember when you draft this affidavit for the commission, you know this history,
Yep.
what he alleges he has done. Knowing all of that, and then you in June, as we sit here, you say, well, that he did not say it's the minister that instructed him, that he did not contradict General Pierre in an affidavit in court. Those two things are evidence that he in fact was colluding. He made the decision to collude, to keep General Mkhwanazi in place so that he can continue to plunder the secret fund in the same way that he's doing in 2025. I don't see how you get there. It seems forced to say, well, that's what he was doing in 2015 or whatever year it is.
Yep.
And then you say, well, it repeats, in fact, in
I
25.
hear what you're
It
saying,
seems to be
Commissioner,
forced.
and my point is quite simple.
Yes.
But if the content of his affidavit in 2020 had been included in the content of his affidavit in 2012, I would absolutely agree with you. But it wasn't. The whole thing was kept quiet for 8 years. And I believe it could have been put out into the open 8 years earlier. And who knows what effect it would have had on the police. It might have changed the future.